Today I want to talk about my latest release, Joy, featuring Nichole, and specifically how I made the synth sound and the bass sound. Now it's really important that if you're going with this simple 8th note rhythm on the sound, that you have really captivating automation throughout the song, and you have chords and melodies that can capture the audience's interest. So I'll break down the synth, how I made that, how I made the bass, and then what I did with the automation.
I'm not supposed to complain it. Yeah, what you give is what it is. What do you do when what you get is less than?
So I'm going to jump into Bitwig here to show you how I made the instrumental for Joy. So here's just the synth part. And I have 3 different layers that combine together to make this synth part. So I have a serum synth here. And what I have is a saw, a basic Moog type sound, another saw here in the sub, and then a noise added on top. So we'll start out with oscillator A here. So it's just this saw that has a little bit of automation thanks to this envelope. Oscillator B is more of just a noise than anything. And then I've got this just clean saw wave here, which is the sub layer, but I'm using it a little bit higher up in its range. So it's just a normal saw wave there. And then what really makes this sound is the noise on top, and that's the guitar smack too. So I just kind of cycled through some of the noise sounds with the other layers on until it sounded good, and kind of makes it so it cuts through the mix a lot better. Now within Serum I have a lot of different automation going on. So I have the first envelope, which just controls the gain on the whole synth. So it's pretty short, staccato type of sound. Then I have envelope 2, and this dictates the filter here. And you'll tell that that's like a huge part of the sound is this filter. So it just quickly opens up and kind of adds a little bit of a vowel type of sound and cuts a lot of the bright highs from this sound. Then I have this third envelope, which is just a really short envelope, and this is for the noise and some of this other automation like detuning, some syncs, and different stuff that I kind of just had fun with. So I want the noise just to be really staccato and just cut through at the very top end of the mix. Secondly, I have this, which is another bounce serum layer, where I did basically the same thing as that first one, but it's more of a square sound. And this is actually in the intro of the song, just this sound by itself. And then finally, I have a little bit of a special sauce here, the So Lush special sauce. And this is none other than a cat meow playing chords. And the thing about this is it's an organic sound that kind of fills out the gaps, and it makes the sound a little bit less artificial, adds that organic tone to it. And it's a little bit out of tune, but it kind of works at a low level to fill in the frequency spectrum. And then together, that's what you have. Now I also want to go into the MIDI a little bit here. So I added a few subliminal melody notes in to the main Serum synth. This really spices up the song. It adds a counter melody to the vocals. And the reason that I wanted to go with the 8th note in the first place was because the vocals were really legato in the chorus, and so the rhythm kind of backs that up and counters that. And then having a little melody in there as well creates a little bit more interest without making the song too messy. Now for the bass, I also have a Serum that's doing the bass line on the 8th notes. And this is just a saw, a couple different saws for the high end, and then a sub doing the low end that is just a sine wave. And then I did similar envelope automation here in terms of the filter, and then also doing a little bit with the weight position and so forth. And the thing that I really had to take care of here was making sure that the bass and the synth blends together really well. So I had to make sure they're both had similar envelopes and sound like one when played together. And this is definitely a balancing act because on one hand, for really low frequencies, you oftentimes don't want extreme staccato. You want something that has a little bit more decay to it. And then for high-end things like a hi-hat, it's okay to have it pretty staccato. So it's kind of a balancing act of having the low end linger a little bit longer, but also have a similar envelope to the synth so they blend together. Okay, now for the automation. So here in the build-up, I did some automation that extends throughout the whole build-up. And mainly what I did is a filter that opens up. It goes from dark to bright, similar to how you would do on any sound for a build-up oftentimes. And then also what I did was I had an envelope on the main serum synth that gets longer and longer release as the build-up progresses. So this is pretty typical in a build-up too, to kind of have the release get longer and longer and longer and add tension. Now, during the drop, I also have a lot of automation, but this is more phrase by phrase instead of throughout the whole thing. So one thing I did was I automated the same, automated the decay of the sound here. So it gets a little bit shorter and longer. So it gets longer towards the end of a phrase, and then it even starts kind of long and then gets short. So this just kind of adds some interest to the sound. What I also did is, on the group of all of these layers together, is I added some distortion. And then the distortion kind of changes throughout over time. So every bar, you'll have a little bit of distortion, and then every couple bars, it gets even more extreme. And then every 4 bars, there's another distortion that comes in a little bit. So you hear a little bit more crunch at the end of the phrase. So I'd highly recommend little subliminal automations like this throughout an 8th note or just a basic type of rhythm on a synth. This kind of, like, oftentimes if you have like a really rhythmic sound in the first place, you might not want to do too much automation on it. But then if you just have like a really basic rhythm, really basic chords, then you might want to do automation to counter the basicness of the rhythm. And then just have the sound evolve over time. And when you're doing multiple different layers, like these 3 different synth sounds that are going together, definitely make sure to EQ them a little bit and have them fit their own spot. You really don't want to have like everything in the 3000 hertz range where it just gets really harsh. You have an extra build-up there, or in the low mids, you have a lot of muddiness in your mix. So be sure to kind of have each layer serve a specific role. Like the noise on the high end, that might occupy most of the high frequencies, but you'll have some of the other synths cut a little bit lower so they don't occupy that same frequency range. Now the last little Easter egg here. That other sound right there in the background, that's another cat meow. Alright guys, thank you for watching, and be sure to catch my next videos. I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing, both on this song and other releases. So what I do to run Facebook ad campaigns and ads on Instagram, Facebook Messenger, other places, what I think about playlists and these types of things. And then for my future releases, I'll be breaking down production and different tips and tricks. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.
I'm not supposed to